60 years ago in D.C., a historic gathering of some 200,000 people marked by a historic speech. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, noting that while the country's founders had promised the right to life, liberty, and happiness, that promise had been deferred for Black Americans. His dream was that one day all men would be treated as equals.
I want to see this mosaic of America that is saying in unison, I am the dream, and we're going to work to do everything we can to ultimately realize the dream.
King's oldest son, Martin Luther King Jr. III, will speak Saturday in Washington to mark the 60th anniversary of that historic day of August 28, 1963. The son says in 2023, he thought the country would be closer to accomplishing his father's dream of true equality for African Americans, that Black children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
You have issues where hate and hostility and bigotry is at an all-time high. It certainly existed in 1963, but it has metastasized to something that we're not familiar with.
Martin Luther King Jr. III, who was about 5 years old when his father spoke to the throngs in D.C., says he's troubled by what he calls an attempt to revise Black history in the U.S., including in states like Florida and Arkansas, which are pushing back on college credit African American history courses for high schoolers.
We have a myriad of issues. It's not jobs and freedom just. That's certainly part of the issues still. But it really, you talk about history being attempted to be pushed out of our system, particularly history around African Americans, books being banned, whether it's Black American history, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's things about Latino, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans. All of this history is revisionist history.
Racial friction can still be seen in protests around the country, ignited by cases like Minneapolis police killing George Floyd in 2020. The Black Lives Matter movement was born of discrimination and police violence against Black Americans. The 2012 killing of Trayvon Martin in a Florida neighborhood by George Zimmerman, and the death of 12-year-old Tamir Rice by a Cleveland police officer who thought the child was playing with a real gun. These incidents leave many in the Black community wondering if the dream will ever be realized.
I think that is why we have to continually reflect and remind. It is said that a people that do not know their history are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past.
This Saturday's events marking the anniversary are scheduled to be centered around the Lincoln Memorial, where King made his speech. A march is planned for early afternoon that will pass the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, a showing the son says the country needs more of.
In 1963, when Dad shared his dream and vision for our nation, you had two broad issues, jobs and freedom. You had a certainly divided nation at that time, but it was different than the division today.